Welcome to Locked and Loaded, a Supreme Court journey through gun rights cases. The podcast that explores the legal history of the Second Amendment and how it has shaped the ongoing debate over gun rights in America. Our three hosts, myself, Tyler, and Alan, are in this episode. We'll be taking a deep dive into the Supreme Court cases that have defined the right to bear arms in America.
The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms. But what exactly does that mean? For years, this question has been at the center of a contentious and often heated national debate, with gun right advocates and gun control proponents fiercely debating the limits and scope of the Second Amendment.
Throughout history, the Supreme Court has played a crucial role in shaping this debate, issuing a series of landmark rulings that have established the boundaries of gun rights in America. From the landmark decisions of D.C. v. Heller in 2008, to McDonald v. Chicago in 2010, and the most recent New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin in 2022, the Supreme Court has weighed in on the issue of gun rights with significant consequences.
So let's start with a big one, the Columbia v. Heller case.
The District of Columbia v. Heller case was a legal challenge to Washington, D.C.'s strict gun control laws, which prohibited the possession of handguns and required that all firearms be kept in homes, be unloaded and disassembled, or bound by a trigger lock.
In this case, the plaintiff, Dick Heller, was a licensed special police officer who wanted to keep a handgun in his home for self-defense. He argued that the D.C. laws violated his Second Amendment rights.
Yep, and after a heated case, the Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision held that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm for lawful purposes, such as self-defense, in the home. The court also held that the D.C. laws, which effectively banned handguns, were unconstitutional.
They reasoned that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms, that is, separate from the right to serve in a militia. The opinion also stated that the right is not unlimited and that certain regulations, such as those to prohibit felons and mentally ill from possessing firearms, are still permissible.
Additionally, the court held that D.C.'s laws, which effectively banned handguns, violated the Second Amendment because they prevented citizens from possessing firearms that are commonly used for self-defense in the home.
The Heller decision established the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms, which has impacted the gun control debate and been cited in legal challenges. However, it's also controversial and criticized by gun control advocates for hindering laws aimed at reducing. Now, Tyler, I have been told you have knowledge on the follow-up case, McDonald v. Chicago.
Yes, that is correct. The Heller case, while presenting a fundamental question on gun restrictions, was slightly misleading in its application. Because D.C. is a federal district and not a state, Chicago argued that the Heller precedent pertained to federal law, not states' rights. The case in McDonald v. Chicago gave the court the opportunity to clarify this precedent.
Can you give us a quick background on this case?
Of course. The case arose in 2008 when Otis McDonald, a retired African-American custodian, filed a lawsuit to challenge provisions of an 1982 Chicago law that generally banned the new regulations of handguns and made registration a prerequisite of possessing a firearm.
And how did the court decide?
In a 5-4 majority, Justice Alito wrote the majority opinion. I'll read an excerpt aloud. In Heller, we held that the Second Amendment protects the right to possess a handgun in the home for the purpose of self-defense, unless considerations for a state crisis counsel otherwise. A provision of the Bill of Rights that protects a human that is fundamental from an American perspective applies equally to the federal government and to the states.
Wow, thank you, Tyler, for presenting such an interesting case.
Oh yes, it is very interesting to see how the court revisits a previous ruling within such a short amount of time. We'll also be discussing the recent New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin case.
Yep, that's right. The Supreme Court issued its decision in this case earlier this year, and it has significant implications for gun owners in the state of New York.
Can you give us a quick overview of the case for those who may not be familiar with it?
Sure. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association challenged a New York law that required individuals to show a special need for self-defense in order to obtain a concealed carry permit.
This association argued that this requirement violated the Second Amendment's guarantee of the right to bear arms.
And how did the Supreme Court rule in this case?
The court ruled that the law was unconstitutional. Justice Alito, writing for the majority, held that the law violated the Second Amendment by making it too difficult for law-abiding citizens to exercise their right to bear arms.
But the court also made clear that the state could regulate the carry of guns in public spaces. The ruling also applies to laws that make it difficult for individuals to obtain a concealed carry permit.
That is an important distinction to make. So what are the practical implications of this ruling for gun owners in New York State?
Well, the ruling effectively means that New York State's requirement that individuals demonstrate a special need for self-defense in order to obtain a concealed carry permit is no longer valid. It's likely that more individuals will now be able to obtain these permits.
But it is important to note that the ruling doesn't mean that anyone can carry a gun in public without a permit. States still have the authority to regulate who can carry guns in public spaces.
It's also worth mentioning that the ruling was narrow in scope. The court didn't address other types of gun control measures, such as bans on assault weapons or high-capacity magazines.
That's true. The ruling only applies to concealed carry permits, and it doesn't change the fact that states can still regulate the carrying of guns in public.
Overall, though, the court ruling is a significant victory for gun rights advocates, who have been fighting for years to expand the scope of the Second Amendment.
And it's likely that we'll see more challenges to gun control laws in the future as a result of this ruling.
Oh yeah, big time. This case is just one of many that will shape the future of gun rights in America.
And that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us for this discussion of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Buren case.
Hi, my name is Dave, and I have a problem. You see, sometimes things don't work the way they're supposed to out there. And let's just say that my partner hasn't been too stoked about it. It's been really frustrating for both of us. But then I discovered RiseMate. It's been quite the transformation. Let me tell you, it's like I'm 18 again. So if you're like me and sometimes need a little extra help down there, wink wink, nudge nudge, cough cough, give RiseMate a try. Your partner will thank you. And who knows, you might even surprise yourself. I know I did.